Welcome to What in the Actual Mental Health. It is Kat and I today.
Hello.
Just the two of us, because no one else can stand us.
That's so not true.
Yeah,
Actually, we have people asking to be on the podcast.
I know, which is good, and we will have them. But sometimes we just, just you and I.
Yeah.
Balance it out.
Yeah, we gotta do it that
Wear
way.
each other out only. So we were talking about that. Well, Kat picked the topic today. Is that she wants to talk about advocating for children.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why I think that's also interesting is that, not that if you're listening to this outside of the state of New Mexico, which I don't know if you are, but we're having this whole hoopla fucking thing right now with them bringing in the National Guard for the kids. Did you hear this?
No, I don't hear much.
I know you don't.
I have one good ear.
Fucking nuts with this shit. The other day I asked her, I'm like, did you hear about that giant ass earthquake? She's like, what earthquake? I
No,
was like,
actually what you said was, the mutual friend that we have that lives in the Philippines that
Yeah.
you care about so much, and she's basically like your family, and I was like, yeah, and you're like, is she okay? And I was like,
yeah, you're like, why? And I was like,
What
there's
do
a
you mean?
huge ass like a huge
She's like,
earthquake.
is Rocky okay? And I was like, because...
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know what earthquake you're talking about. I'm like, the biggest one that's
Well, actually what you started with was, did you hear about that hurricane?
slash earthquake.
And you're like, earthquake? And I was like, I didn't hear about either.
You're the worst.
And I go with no.
Yeah, so I don't know what the end result was of this, okay? So, because I had seen something today, but I didn't have enough fucks to give about it today.
Oh, your fucks fell out?
They fell out. My fucks are like my vagina.
Like
Barren.
blowing in the wind.
Barren.
Yeah.
Like someone else I know. So I guess our governor decided a couple of days ago that she was going to bring in the National Guard to dampen the crime that juveniles are committing and the uptick of fentanyl use. And it's interesting to me is that in the story, it was like, crime's getting better. We're going to bring in the National Guard though. And I was like, that's like, I'm not fat, but I weigh 600 pounds. Where you're like, well, I don't know that those two go together. Like, I don't know if the math's on that. I mean, I'm not good at math.
That's for sure.
But it seems odd. And
But if something is getting better,
right, why are we bringing in the military? Military, yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of people, of course, have had their opinions about it, myself included. Yeah. Yeah, and especially because I have worked with kids and juveniles for eons now. And
oh, you do that?
yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I know some people don't know that, but I definitely work with both trauma, grief, and kids, and some other things, about 5,000 other things. And it's interesting to me is that like a lot of people were like, well, maybe we just like make the laws better, or also maybe we advocate better for our children and like what they need. So it was interesting when you said that because I was like, I wonder, in my head, I was like, I wonder if she read, and then I was like, absolutely not, she
I don't
didn't.
read.
Yeah, not the news, so.
Not the news. The amount of research that I do, though. But
Yeah.
not on the news.
Not on where we live. So it was interesting that you
No,
said
because
that.
we're behind the times here. Like, there's nothing happening in New Mexico that I can use to make New Mexico better.
Yeah,
I have to
that's
bring
true.
things from outside New
Literally
Mexico
everywhere else.
to
Yeah.
make it better because
Yeah.
we're so far behind. We're
Yeah.
like,
Remember when we went to
eons.
Maryland and we were like, wow, we are fucked.
oh, yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So there's
so-
zero chance I'm doing research and learning things in New Mexico.
Yeah, so it's just interesting. And right before that, I think I told you that there was like this idea that some jabroni somewhere, whoever you are, come for me. I fucking dare you. That we should
Okay.
pay juvenile
Oh, yeah.
that were out of the kid prison, and the caveat of like other kids, but that was like the main factor is that they were juvenile delinquent, juvenile probationees who we were going to give like $2,000 a month to. I'm like, I haven't fucked it up recently. Can I get $2,000 a month? I mean, I could fuck it up if I'm going to get $2,000 a month, but I'm just curious, like where again is the math? So I think it's very interesting that you want to talk about advocating for kids because we don't do that here.
No, at all.
Never. Yeah. So you brought it up. You poked the bear.
I know. Now I'll just sit here for
Yeah.
like,
And just stare at me and I'm like,
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So yeah. And I know that that's not like exactly, I mean, I think you were talking to like in families and relationships
well, no,
as
that's
well.
true too. But I mean,
All the
in
way
general,
across the board.
yeah. But
Yeah.
the families and relationships, I mean, that translates to that too, because the people that are not advocating for kids in, you know, their relationships are sure as fuck not turning around and advocating for other kids.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then we just had that little kid that got shot a couple of days ago in an apartment complex with his mom's gun. And somebody in the house is a convicted felon because one of the people that was part of that is getting charged with felon in possession. So, and I'm pretty sure that little kid passed. So, again,
Cool.
yeah. And here's another little New Mexico fun tidbitty. Yay! Is that, remember, I don't know if you had read that one, maybe, or I talked to you about it, I think, about the mom that took a little nappy nap and her baby, 17-month-old baby, was in the bathtub.
No.
And it drowned because she took a little nappy nap. Yeah, she was tired because she had been drinking, I think it was the night before.
Yeah, good.
And she's out on bail. And all she had to do was agree to not do it again. Baby's gone, so check that. And not hang out with any other children, and also not drink. So you can let your baby drown and go home. Yeah, so there's that too. So enjoying that. And like I said, I don't care if this gets me canceled. I don't care if people want to come for me. I will always say that the bullshit we pull here for kids is astronomically fucking ridiculous. And because I've worked in this system, I worked for fucking CYFD. I know how ridiculously stupid we love to do shit for our children. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? And then you're like, I wonder why we're not like, people don't stay here, or we're not getting better, or our kids aren't having a better education system. There's 1,000 reasons.
Yeah, because a lot of the teachers here were those kids.
Yeah, exactly. Those kids that survived that bullshit, and then they were like, I'm just trying to get a job at this point. So fuck them kids. But yeah.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, being a teacher in general, no matter what state you're in, is really hard.
Yeah, I would never.
Never.
Oh, God.
I know people are like, oh, I teach second grade. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I'm like, would you like a medal? Because fuck that. Well, and here's what sucks too about being a teacher is that it's the top, not the boots on the ground, that are making the decision. And the top is typically people who have never been in a classroom since they fucking got done with school and quit reading.
Well, that's how hospitals are too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, insurance companies, like the people that are just not denying claims, like
right. In the little cubicle.
Yeah, I'm like, do you know how to spell cancer?
Yeah, and they're like, I don't even know what that is, but you can't have any medicine. Thank you. Yeah, it's really, it sucks. It's just, I mean, it's shitty. So, okay, so let me ask you this question, since you wanted to talk about this. What is it you think, or why do you think, especially here for us in a state that, I don't know, is what it is, I guess, but why do you think we don't fight harder for our kids in this state?
I think our state is full of mediocrity, and I think the people, like, I think we're just used to being, like,
Dead last
in just all the things except for number one in crime and things. You know what I mean? But like dead last in the good things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are more of a poverty-based state, you know?
For no reason, though.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
We have a $50 million surplus of money right now just sitting in somebody's asshole, and everyone's fighting about where they think it should go. So it just sits there. Call me. I got a list of places. I'm 100% sure I know where you could stick that $50 million outside of your asshole.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I just think that we aren't, I don't think we're given the resources to have the appropriate mindsets to think forward. I think those of us that think forward or think outside the box are far and few between, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you and I would be considered like the big fish in the little pond. And I think New Mexico in general, because I'm calling you fat, is what happened.
Well, I just made myself a big fish.
Yeah. But I think we're nice. I think we are not, my dad used to tell me that I was an anomaly in New Mexico because if you put us, right, in a group with 100 other people, the chances that you're going to find people that are like-minded are pretty slim. And so I think overall, not to say that there aren't plenty of people in New Mexico that are trying to do better and, you know,
have
make
great
change
ideas
and whatever. Yeah. But it's very much like we're the minority and it's hard to break through. And I think because it's hard to break through and people in New Mexico aren't very, they're not taught to work hard and make a difference. Like, there are plenty of hardworking people here, but they're fine with just like putting their head down, getting their job done, go home and do whatever. There's not a lot of motivation for change in New Mexico. So I don't think that even, you know, the upcoming generations, like you and I are on the younger end for sure
Especially me.
I mean, I was like, this bitch is not gonna let it go. We're definitely on the younger side of people that are trying to change things.
Right.
But I don't think that there are enough resources or enough empowerment for us to really think outside the box without us being stifled.
And it's interesting because I had just watched, I think it was a sheriff in San Francisco. And they were talking about how bad San Francisco is right now, especially like with their mental health and their homeless population. And they were saying that they think the problem is too much resources. And here's why. And it's interesting. I had just watched that because I had just kind of watched this documentary, because you know I love a documentary more than anything on the planet. It's like second to reading. It's like documentaries.
It's like reading documentaries, my husband.
Yeah. Sometimes my husband's like up there with the documentaries. The reading's my most favorite. But he lets me read quietly in my little stack of books. So he's like the beast to my bell. But anyway, so they were talking about, they had met with these, the documentary was talking about these guys, and they were in Africa, from Africa. And he was saying that when the UN came in, it like jacked up a whole bunch of stuff for them, because what was happening is that because these resources, this money from Africa was not being given to Africans, it was being given to the UN, who would come in and like give supplies, and you just had to know where to show up to get the things. So you didn't like shop within your community. You didn't use your brain to think like, where should I go to get this? What should I do? Who should I ask? How should I get my tribe together to do this stuff? And he said companies would then come in. They would say, okay, we want it. For him, example, he was a business owner. And they were like, this company from England, I think. He said they came in, they were like, we want this service. How much would it cost for you to do it here? It'll be in here, manufactured from Africa, da 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 da. So they gave them a price point. They went with another company from a different country, brought them into Africa, and then subcontracted the African guys to do the job. But then that company made all that money that never stayed in Africa. And so he said, he was like, part of what has been the problem is the amount of resources we have gotten has actually made it worse. And then it was interesting because right after I watched the video with the sheriff, and he was saying, he was like, they have too much. Instead of having to, like, let's say, and I'm not saying, you know, that either one of them is accurately correct. I think there's bits and pieces of both that are right and wrong. I think if you say to people, you know, it makes more money for you to have children and stay home, and the more babies you make, the more money you get. And if you put them into daycare so you can go to work, that hurts you, it doesn't help you. Then we're just giving you resources to keep you dumb, to keep you stupid, to get you to not pay attention to what's really going on, right? So those resources, although on paper, you're getting food stamps, you're getting housing, yeah, that sounds great. But you lose that the minute you actually do better for yourself. Mm-hmm. So are the resources helpful or more harmful?
I don't consider those resources.
No.
I consider those crutches.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, from like a parental standpoint, I think, I mean, it would be the same thing as like the entitled kid who gets everything and then goes off to college, right? And doesn't know how to do their fucking laundry or doesn't know how to cook.
Or put a stamp on an envelope.
Correct.
Who I've met.
Mm-hmm.
Who I've supervised. I loved him. It was my favorite day.
You're like, that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, oh, and then asked me, what after you stamp it, where does it go? You're in college, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah. Exactly.
Those are crutches. I don't think those are resources.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, a resource would be teaching you how to do the trade.
Yeah.
Or teaching you how, like if you're a stay-at-home mom, I would teach you, I would think that resources would be something to teach you how to better your kids' education, or how to
self-care for yourself and your children.
Right. Or how to make money in a different way.
Right.
So like, you know, I don't know, thinking outside the box.
Right.
And I don't think, I mean, I know New Mexico doesn't think outside the box.
No. Well, and even you think about even like government assistance, when it started back when what's his name, Roosevelt was president, and he helped get that started. It was always meant to be temporary. And in fact, you were supposed to pay back what you borrowed. So you got money from the government to keep you alive during that time. And FDR was like, we'll give you this, and then you'll give it back eventually. Or if you can't, whatever you have left over, you will give back. And people did. And then it changed to you get it all the time. And no one's really fact checking why you need it, or instead, like you said, teaching you to not be dependent on someone else wiping your ass for you. And again, there are caveats for everything. Okay, so only come for me halfway when I say these things, because I do understand that I grew up very poor. I very much understand what assistance looks like for a time being. But we didn't stay that way. I work my ass off now to teach my child how to be self-sufficient and how to think things through. My husband and I talk about money all the time in front of him, and like, what does that look like, and how do you make it last, and how do you not spend it on Roblox every fucking 5 minutes, things like that. But I think that right there too is like advocating for him, right? Is that I don't want him to grow up thinking that you stay on the government tip for the rest of your life, because at some point everything runs out.
Yeah.
And then you're fucked, super fucked. And so by not teaching, we're also not advocating.
Right.
Which is real dumb, because, and this is the other thing too, is that the amount of times too that I have watched our court system especially favor families over like adopted families, or mothers over fathers, and that's not always right.
No, it's definitely not always right.
I literally had a judge one time when I worked for Protective Services say, you could be an A+ foster parent and a D+ parent, and I will still give the kid back to the parent.
Why?
Yeah, in open court. And I was like, I don't think that. Again, I'm not a rocket scientist, but scientist, but I don't think that's correct. But that is exactly the mindset that a lot of our judiciary system has, and a lot of our system, even all the way down to trickles, is that family is better. The fuck it is. I have a shit ton of family that I want nothing to do with. And I have a shit ton of family that has been gifted to me, not by blood, but by gift. And oh my God, I'm so grateful for them. They're way healthier, way better. So, and then same thing where it's like these judges have this idea, and even, other like protective services, that the mother is the better parent than the father. And it's like, that is also not always true. And I know biologically, you hope for that.
Yeah.
But I've watched it 1,000 fucking times be way wrong.
Same.
Ass backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that's even worse too, is that as a mom, when you're the shittier parent, like, gross. You made that baby. That's like a whole piece of you that is in them, and they're still floating around in you. And you still took a fucking nap while you were baby's taking a bath.
Yeah, I don't. Even my 5-year-old, like, I am still, it's so interesting. I try to find a balance between like autonomy but still like watching over,
Yeah, being protective.
Right. And I just like can't even imagine being like at 17 months being like, I'm good. I'm gonna
sleep it off.
Take a little snoozy snooze here.
Yeah, O's 10. And I still tell Angelo, I'm like, can you go check on him? Like, well, he takes showers now because he doesn't really like a bath now, but still. I'm like, can you just check on him? Like, just pop your head in there? Because, they're kids. They're still little. Yes, I want you to be autonomous, but I'm also not going to be like, hey, could you also bake this flambe?
Right.
And I'm hoping it's going to go well. And if not, fuck it. I get to go home. It's done. It's real done. Yeah. No, I don't either. It makes me sad. It makes me mad, actually. It makes me very mad. And it just gets disappointing. It's the same thing like with our kids being, dead last in education. But yet I think we're fourth in how much money out of all the states. We're fourth on how much money we get for our education system, and have been fourth for years. But we are dead last in how our kids score. And here's the crazy thing, is that when kids get ready to test the week before, guess what their teachers do? They get them ready for that test. So they're giving them an opportunity to practice the week before the actual state testing. And we're still dead last. And then a few years ago, we got caught moving the bar on what was passing versus not passing so that we could pass. And no one said anything. I mean, it made the news. And then it just went away. And we're still dead last. Seems weird. Seems sus. Yeah. Just not on that, everybody. Not because it makes me crazy.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old's going into school here.
I know.
So we chose a different route for her and for my younger when she's ready to is like a charter school.
Yep.
And we did a what do you call it? A tour, I guess, like a orientation night, onboarding night for the kids. And it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it in a way that they like make learning very fun and interactive for them.
The way it's
And
supposed to be.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so they have what are called flavors or themes for the kids. So like in kindergarten, so Lana's going into kindergarten. And so she gets to choose a flavor, right? I think they have 4 different flavors. Flavor is like a theme.
Yeah.
I thought it was like strawberry or chocolate.
Right, you're like, I want a flavor.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, blueberry, cool beans. And my husband was like, it's the theme.
You're like,
I was like,
oh,
why can't
so
I
we're
just
not
call
getting
it
snacks?
theme? Yeah, I was like, fucking,
Because kids don't know what that means.
Right.
Flavors, kids know.
Yeah, right, okay, well, whatever. This flavor is cooking. Cooking's not a flavor, it's a theme. Whatever. So, there's like 4 different flavors, 4 different kindergarten rooms. There's only 14 kindergarten kids to a room.
Wow.
And they have a rotating educational assistant based on, the times that things are set, right? So we're in there during the pertinent or important times. And so you get to request a flavor. And then they do a skills assessment on your kid. So there's another time where you go and you bring your kid in, and it's learning and reading and math and all the things like where they score, not because they're necessarily worried about where they score, but they want evenly dispersed rooms. They don't want like all the kids that struggle with math in one room and all the kids, so they can be evenly and appropriately dispersed, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some type of thing like that in APS, because I remember there's like a learning, a reading, a test, or some things,
Not anymore.
Oh.
They just put you in special ed or regular. As far as I know, the last time I had talked to somebody about APS, it was just you're either special ed or regular, which is why now the vast majority of kids are in special ed, not regular. Like special ed classes are bursting at the seams because they put anything that you're struggling with, whether it's reading, whether it's math, whether it's dyslexia, ADHD, you're now in special ed. Yeah, take that.
So glad
Yeah.
that we're going to this school.
Yeah.
Well, we got to do this tour, and the rooms are like so different than regular schools. They're like, one teacher put like a chalkboard all around the bottom of the thing.
Yeah.
There's like a science room. They're doing fucking 3D printing there.
Wow.
I know, it's
That's
funny.
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, but it's very interactive, and they change themes. So kindergarten and first have one theme for the whole year, and then it's like second, third, and fourth, I think, have 2 themes. So it switches halfway through your semester, like your first semester, right? And then after, when you go into like the second semester, second half of school, they switch themes, so you get to pick.
You need flavors.
Right, excuse me, flavors. I know. And then it ends up being, I think it goes up to like 4 different flavors or something like that, where they rotate it. And then when you get into high school, which is where my stepdaughter is going and graduating from at 16, by the way. She's graduating at 16.
Yeah.
Because she's incredibly smart.
Yeah.
She gave a presentation on, well, I'll tell you just in a second how fucking cool that was. But it like blew my mind. I was like, oh my God. So then in high school, you have, I think it's like 7 different classes throughout the day. And it's like you change classes every 22 days.
Oh, interesting.
So every theme,
Wow.
every flavor, you change every 22 days.
That's smart.
And so it's like, you're taking X amount of psychology
I wonder if it's
and math
because
and
it
this
takes
and that.
21 days for you to like really formulate something.
a
And
form of
so,
habit.
so then it becomes like, okay, one day and then you move. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting and it's
like
a little confusing, for those of us that have had regular education,
Yeah,
quote
we
unquote
got
regular
fucked.
education, and we're all fucking dumb. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. And at first I was like, I don't really like that because it's not like they have like sports teams and things like that. And now the school's getting bigger. They do have like I think she said they have like a basketball team but they don't have like cheerleading. They don't have, this is the first year that they've done like an actual powder puff thing. So it's like the school is evolving a little bit. So there's some social stuff.
Yeah.
But it is really cool. They have a flex period, which in the elementary schools, they have the ability, they have PT OT, speech therapy, and one other T.
One other of the T's.
Yeah, one other resource, all there.
Wow.
And they pull the kids during their flex period if they need that therapy, if they need something like that. And it's all on campus, like it's all there.
Wow.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because my daughter Lila is going to need speech therapy for sure, because everything is Bettle and Waddle.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. Yeah. It's very different than regular education. And my daughter Alana, who tends to be kind of like shy, but she's very almost like analytical. Like she'll watch before she like goes into something. Yeah. And she was all about it. She's stoked to go to school, but she was like in the classroom. So we'll talk a little bit about this too, but my ex-husband and my husband and I were all in the same room together for this. And that's the first time that's happened. And it was incredibly smooth, which I did not expect it to be. But Alana was like walking Mike, my husband, around the classroom. They were like exploring together. Like she was taking him around and like showing him stuff, which was really cool because she felt safe enough and not felt like she had to choose one daddy or the other.
Right.
And she didn't feel like it had to be just mommy. Like it was like she was like walking around with him and she was talking to us. Like it was just very natural for her.
Yeah.
Which is my number one goal, mine and my ex-husband's number one goal the entire time since we've been separated, is that our kids don't feel like they ever have to choose between like which parent they go sit with or talk to or whatever. But it was really cool to watch her be interested in that type of learning. Right. Because when you do something kind of structured with her, I'm pretty sure she has ADHD. She doesn't do the structure very well.
Well, and that, what's funny is that we had looked at like a Montessori school for when we thought maybe he would be living here. And we had gone and taken him to Montessori, and it was same thing. It's like this open, like all this light, and they were like, oh, you can take your shoes off. And he was like, what? And like kicked his shoes off, and like, same thing where and I think that's the thing is that, so back in the day, like when schools were originally formulated 150 fucking years ago, it was made that way so that they could pump out people who would work in farms and people who would work in industries. That was it. That was all it was meant for. And that has not changed at fucking all. So when you look at that, and then there are people who are starting to notice as well that we're also very much teaching kids what it would be like to be in prisons. Because if you look at what the style of a prison is and the style of a school, they are not that different. They tell you where to go, when to go. You have to ask to go to the bathroom in school.
Yep.
Why? Can I just pee? Why do I have to tell everybody in the room I gotta pee?
Yeah.
And now especially, we've got everything locked down. There's security walking around. Everything is, you've got to badge in and badge out. I mean, they're exactly like prisons now. So we've moved from farmers to industrial to now what it would be like to be a prisoner, and just like pumping our kids out into this.
I know. I thought it's interesting that you bring up the badging in and out thing, because as a parent, I was like, oh, thank fuck, no one can get to my kid. Yeah. But it makes sense. Yeah. Even when we went for my stepdaughter's presentation the other day, I had to step out of the room for a minute, and when I came back in, we had to knock on the door to get in. And you can go out, but you can't come in. And like, there's like double entries to get into the school. It's very. You can look at it one of two ways. Sure, it's very protected, right? Or it's very incarcerated.
You're very safe in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, and I get it. I mean, I'm not saying I don't understand why we're being more careful with the lock system in our schools, but also, can we be also realistic too? Is that it's very prison-like, and it's creepy. I mean, to me, it's very creepy, and I think that's why like charter schools are getting a lot more notoriety. I think Montessori's are too, because you are allowing kids to like have this freedom, and that's the thing too, is that like making everybody learn the exact same things when not everybody learns the same way, likes the same things, can understand and articulate or hold on to it, is super frustrating. I mean, I remember every time I had to do anything with math, to this day, I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna die. Hate it, and it's like, if you let kids be resourceful, they will, they always will. There was this little tiny town, I think it was in India, they had gotten like this older computer, and they had kind of, spiffed it up or whatever, and basically like cut out a wall in like this neighborhood, right? Just cut a hole in the wall and put the computer in there. And the kids, like right at kid level, kids could come over and they could Google or look up and learn about whatever they wanted. And what they found was that the kids that were doing it would then go and teach the other kids, like whatever it is they learned. And then they'd come back and they'd look up something else, and then they'd go back and tell the other kids. And it was like, if you let them be, kids are very resourceful, you know? And there's a book called Anti-Fragile, and they talk a lot about kids are not, like, you don't need to bubble wrap them. And the more you do, the more it fucks them.
Right.
And they had talked about how in Arizona they did that biodome, and where it was like the whole city inside of this big dome. And one of the things that kept happening is the trees kept falling over, just completely like thunk. And they were like, what is that? Like, why is that happening? They get the best water, they get all this sunshine, because there was no wind. There was no wind that caused that tree to get stronger into the ground, so it wouldn't tip over. So because in the biodome there was no wind, it would just knock them over. So it's very much, they were equating that to like kids. It's like, if you let them have the bumps and bruises within fucking reason, people, then they obviously they're not anti-fragile. Like, they get stronger because of those things. And the same thing with school. If you let them find the things that bring them joy,
right,
they won't hate school. And that's my biggest worry with O, is that he's in regular school and he hates it.
He shouldn't be.
No.
He's literally like the prime example of a child that should not be.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, Alana has ADHD, but
it's
poor baby.
So ADHD.
Yeah.
And he loves to talk, and he loves to move.
Controlled environments are
it's literally like a prison for him. That's exactly what it is, and he hates it. And he's 10, and he already hates school, and he has another 8 years to go. And I'm like, oh, I am so sorry. And there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. But the thing is that that's part of why we thought a Montessori would be good for him too, because there's just more freedom, more movement.
Yeah, there's more autonomy too. Like, they can figure out like how to be like in their skin, which is something that I really appreciated about Explorer, is that they give the kids a flex period where there's like nothing that you have to be doing, but encouraging other types of learning, social skills. They said that they work on like social skills, communication skills, you know, in like group settings, but they're interacting with other kids, right? So their flex periods kind of overlap with some of the other classrooms, so that they're still.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I thought that was a really, like, I've kind of been, I mean, for multiple reasons, kind of been dreading a lot of going to school, but just because now that's like a new chapter, that's like the closing of the chapter where I get to see my baby all the time, and you know, she's not a baby anymore, which also sucks, but you know, so my mama heart is like excited and like bursting with excitement, but also sad.
Yeah.
But also I was like, fuck man, like school was rough for me, like school was hard. And I have felt very hopeful after watching the kind of the structure, hearing now, walking around the school. I was super excited. Like, my heart was so full. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because it is, and that's the hard thing, is that I hated school. I love to learn. Learning is one of my favorite things to this day.
Same.
But the minute you put me in like a structured school, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm uncomfortable. I just want to go home. I want to get out of here. I hate it. Hated it. I hated school. I had such a hard time, and you know, and then too, if you're at all a little bit off, a little weird, it makes school so much worse. And you just get your ass handed to you, you know. And then we've kind of swung the pendulum a little too far, I think, you know, with some of these kids that have these IEPs and 504s. Like, the IEPs are typically for kids that have learning disabilities or struggling with something, and then 504s are typically for outbursts or aggression, things like that, right? Just for people who may not know. And I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes they overlap, and sometimes you'll have a kid who has like anger, but they put an IEP. So it also depends on the school. So I'm not like 100% sure, like I'm giving you exact information, but that's a tidbit of correctness. Probably.
General.
But I have watched kids who get IEPs so that they can wear a beanie, because a beanie makes them feel better. And I'm like, that's dumb. Because that's dumb. I understand that beanie is definitely a security item, and I can agree with that, and I can understand that. But how are you going to teach that kid how to get past that and work on their mental health past that, so that when they go work,
like, where's the skill
at a job, who doesn't want you to wear your sweaty ass beanie that you've had on for 6 weeks that has like all your gross kid shit in it, you know, like kids, you know, they're sweat, they stink. So no, that's not helpful, you know. And that's the thing, like you were saying, that's not a resource, that's a crutch. You're not learning anything. You're learning how to be dependent on your beanie, instead of like, this makes me feel good, but I can't always wear this, and so when I can't,
now I'm gonna freak out.
Yeah, which is annoying. because you can't wear that beanie everywhere. It's gross. And some of them, yeah, sometimes the same thing, like I'll see these kids and they're like, this is my favorite hoodie. I wear it every day of the year. I'm like, we live in the fucking desert. Gross. I think it's disgusting.
Gross.
So gross. So I think that's the other thing too, is that sometimes now we've like kind of let the pendulum swing. And you know, we're a very blue state. We're a very blue state, and we blew hard.
Yeah,
this
we're
motherfucker.
loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some ways that when we're advocating for our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
You and I are both like real big on that. What are some things or situations that you have come across that maybe trigger you or feel like, damn, I wish someone would advocate for the kid?
I think probably when I recognize, like, when parents are not looking, like the intergenerational stuff, that's a huge thing for me. Not only is it because I love it and I love learning about it, but we, especially here, we are a state of so many different cultures and so many different ethnicities that go back to so much trauma that has happened in the past. And we have to find a way to heal that past, because it's not going to change. That shit happened. All of those things have been done to people. All those things were horrific, and I understand that. But if you do not heal it, then all you are doing is continuing to be the victim, and then teaching your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And when you are a victim, you are just laying down and saying, I give. Let the world do what it does to me. I don't need to be any smarter, any better, anything more than just this. And when I share stuff about intergenerational trauma to this day, and people are like, what? It like drives me crazy, because I'm like, this isn't new. I'm not like bringing in anything new. Like, this shit has been being studied and researched in other states for eons outside of us. And I think watching parents just literally copy and paste their shit onto their kids, mm-hmm. knowing that it's going to copy and paste it continualist, like just tink, tink, tink all the way down. Yeah. And even when you bring it up and you're like, do you see that, like, what happened to your great, 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 great grandma, you're just hand-holding it and taking it down to the next and not trying to look at that and let that be uncomfortable and work on it with somebody, mm-hmm. and fix that so that your kids don't have to do it and your grandkids don't have to do it. So I think, mm-hmm. for me, not healing, and with that caveat of that, not just healing, but expecting your kid's therapist to heal your child for you, oof. In an hour every week. Come on, let's get some real fucking shit going here, people. Like, you have that child the rest of the week, yeah. every day, all the time, mm-hmm. and if you are the root of the tree and the tree is not growing,
there's no wind.
There's no wind, bitches. Like, you gotta fucking fix your roots. So you can't just drop your kid off and then be irritated when they're not better in your terms, when you're not better in my terms. Like, you're not healing your shit. How am I going to help your kid? I can only do so much, because you are, and I think parents forget this sometimes, like, you are such a huge factor in that child's life. Yeah. As their advocate, as their mirror. Like, kids pick up, kids hear everything. And this is it. People forget this all the time. They see everything, they hear everything, and whether you think they're not listening, they are always listening. Because the amount of shit your kids tell me in therapy, trust me, I know all your secrets. Because the kids are like, my mom said blah, 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 blah about my dad. And I'm like, that's uncomfortable. Please tell me, and it's like, yeah. Those are just the things where it's like, if you can't heal you and all the past shit that has happened to whomever, then you can't expect that to make that better for your child. So if you can't make a better life for you, yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah. I think 100%, I agree with all of that. I had all these thoughts while you were talking. I was like, I want to say this. I want to say this. And now I'm like, I don't know what to say. I think the biggest way that you can advocate for your child is to work on and heal yourself in front of your child. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Because we're all broken and we're all going to give our kids trauma and we're all going to, fuck them up in one way or another. But being like, oops, right?
Yeah.
Owning it. And also being like, that was who I was and this is not good. Whatever it is. Like,
right. Wasn't my best day.
Right. Or maybe you have an anger issue, right? And you yell and you scream and whatever, right? And when your kids, and even when they're young, like, doesn't matter how young, but even when they're young and you learn maybe you have an anger issue, you're yelling or whatever the case is, you then start to work on that with them.
Right.
And like when you want to yell
Yeah.
at your kids, taking a moment to like I'm a yeller, and I'm also just like a loud talker. So it's hard. Like I have to remember my tone and be like, ooh, I probably need to not be an asshole. But like the other night, I was fucking up to here with them. My girls are they're a year apart, and they're always at each other's fucking throats. Like they're always like, give me this, and I like look over, and they're fucking swinging at each other, and they're making contact, and I'm like, oh my God. After like 30 seconds after, I was just like, keep your hands to yourself. 30 seconds prior, my husband's like, keep your fucking hands to yourself. Like, stop it. And so I like go over, and they're both like, oh my God, like I'm gonna beat the shit out of them. Which I'm the only one that spanks, by the way, out of the, like the two dads and me. I'm the only one that whoops. Yeah. But very rarely, but like, oof, sometimes. But I like, they got scared, and I was like, that's fine. So like get down on my knees, and I like grab both their hands, and I like make them hold my hand. Of course, Alana is like, I'm gonna hold your hand. I don't feel like it. And I'm like, give me your mother hand.
Bring me a moment.
Yeah. And like, I'm like, okay, bring it down. And like, so I'm visibly like trying to work on that with them instead of like them learning to yell at each other.
Yeah.
But like trying to heal yourself in front of your kids, in my opinion, is one of the biggest like things. So that they can learn like, okay, mommy and daddy aren't perfect.
Right.
And they know, and they're trying to fix that.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The other thing that like really fucking triggers me is when you fight in front of your kids.
Oh yeah.
Like, whew, like if you and your partner, you and your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, I don't care, whatever, fighting in front of your kids shows them that it's okay to behave that way to anyone.
Right.
Because in the home, that's like where you're safe.
Yeah.
So like being rude to each other, or talking down to each other, or not lifting each other up, or yelling and fighting in front of your kids from day one shows them that that's fine. And as teenagers, moldable, like when they get really moldable and they start getting into romantic relationships, they're gonna let the other their partner treat them the way that they saw their parents be treated.
Yeah. Whether you hit,
right,
whether you are controlling, all the things, they're like, okay, copy and paste.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like that kills me.
Yeah. My favorite is when parents go like this, watch, give me your hand before you take it. And they're like, don't hit. And I'm like, you realize that you just hit your kid.
Hit your kid. Yeah.
That's my favorite. When I watch parents do that, I'm like, okay, do you realize that you literally just did the dumbest thing ever? It's like, don't do what I'm doing. And I think, one of the things I tell parents sometimes too is that they're like, I can't cry in front of my kids. I'm like, why? I'm like, you don't have to like every day like break down on the ground like sobbing. But if something is like I have a parent who lost a spouse, the kiddo, I see the kiddo. And he's like, I don't think I can cry in front of her. And I was like, why? You should.
The kid said, or the
parent. I'm like, do it. Let her cry with you. I'm not saying that you have to do this all the time, but have that moment where it's like she doesn't feel like she has to stuff it down because you're stuffing it down.
Right.
Allow that space for kids to see that you're human. And the same thing like you're saying, like I have jacked it up with my kid where I'm like, I'm not a yeller, but I'm very stern. Like I can be real 0 to 100 where I'm like, that's it. And everyone's like, oh, like the other day, where were we? And I wasn't even being like mean or anything. I think we were at like a jumping place and my kiddo wasn't paying attention. And my husband like yelled his name and he didn't hear it. And I did it. And like, not only did he, but like 9 other parents turned around and everyone's like, and I was like, oh, that is clearly intense for a lot of people. But it's because I have like a real stern, like I'm about to fuck some shit up, even though I've never touched, I've never hit. I'm not a spanker. That's not my jam. I'm always like, let's sit in the corner, let's chat it out. It's just, and I think one time my husband swatted O on the butt and then O threw up. And so neither of us did it.
Okay.
And he felt so bad. He's like, I think I made him vomit. And I'm like, well, it may have been a combination. So since then, like neither of us, but O's pretty chill too. Like he's a pretty chill little kid. But I'm pretty stern in the way that like I speak to him. Like I'm real matter of the fact sometimes. And I recognize that that's not always doable for a 10-year-old. So there's lots of times where I have to like sit on the ground at his eye level and he's getting bigger than me. So pretty soon that's me an adventure. But
you're like, sit down.
Yeah.
Also.
And I'm like, sit down. Could you just lay down? So I would just like kind of lean in. Yeah. And I have to tell him, I'm like, man, I was not my best today. Like, I love you so much. And here's the thing is that I always tell parents too, is there's a big difference between apologizing and making amends. Making amends means I'm going to really do my best effort to not continue this behavior. Apologizing is just like, yeah, I did wrong, but I'm probably going to fuck it up again in an hour and do it. And that doesn't feel good, right? That's why apologies get old very quickly, especially for kids. And then you will get that back as an adult and you will hate it. So don't do that. So instead you make amends. You know what? I'm not my best today. I could have handled that better. I hope you know that like your behavior wasn't great either. And let's talk about it. Let's have a moment. I'll own my shit. You own your shit. And we make peace, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the things as I tell parents a lot is like, just be human. Be a human with them.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect, especially moms. Like, it's okay. But the thing is that like when you get in a relationship with somebody and you either make the babies together or you get into a, you know, a relationship where somebody has the babies already, you are exactly what they're going to model.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, if you want to fuck around and find out, go ahead and see how that works out.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
So it's like if you're going to stay in a shitty relationship and let somebody treat you like shit, I guarantee your kid will do the same thing at some point.
Correct.
More than once, probably.
Mm-hmm. And it shows up in not even just in romantic relationships, but in friendships too.
Yeah.
And family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like the first place it generally shows for kids is in friendships, where like you get into a relationship where the other friend is a taker.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a lot here culturally where boundaries are not taught because boundaries can seem very disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of clients I work with that have different ethnicities and cultures that are very like push against the boundary thing because they're like, I can't, that's rude. And I'm like, I hear you, but no, it's not rude. It's just saying this is okay, this is not okay.
Right.
I'm all right with this, I'm not. It's not saying like eat a bag of dicks, grandma, with very different things. Very different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say the other one, I don't know your grandma. But it's one of those things too. It's like if you're not teaching your kids the boundaries that you probably were not taught, they're never going to learn them.
Yeah.
And it makes things so much harder, especially even in friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And even, you know, I tell Osiris all the time, I'm like, you can have boundaries with your teacher. You can have boundaries with your doctor. Like, it doesn't matter. You can have boundaries with us. You can have boundaries with the whole world. You can have boundaries with the cat if you want. At the end of the day, it's what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And just because somebody says they have authority over you, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit real quick. Because that always irritates me too, because I'm like, I don't care. Just because you're a teacher to me, it doesn't mean shit. I mean, congratulations. Thanks for doing the job you do that I wouldn't. But there's times where you're wrong.
Oh, of course.
And fuck right off. So yeah, so that's the other thing I think I would just say is like, that also advocating for your kids comes to your teachers. Because I've had parents who are like, oh, I don't think I can tell this teacher that. I'm like, the fuck you can't? I'm like, how old is she? Like 22? You can definitely tell her in the parking lot. It'll be fine. No, I'm just kidding. Even if she's older, it doesn't matter. Tell her some shit. I don't care how old she is.
No, we know you don't care.
Yeah, I don't. I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this. But yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things where advocating for your child is in your relationships and sometimes in theirs, right? With the adults that have some sort of authority when you're not around, you need to be paying attention to that too. Because that's the other part I think too, is that once kids get a bad rap in school, then that carries with them no matter. And I have one client specifically who I love and adore who has a very bad rap and has worked very, very hard to change that and has done exceptionally well. Like, I literally could not be more proud of this person. But every time she turns a corner, there's a teacher who wants to remind her of what a piece of shit she was at one time. And I'm like, I get it. I know that's frustrating. She sounded like she was horrible. And there were times where she was shitty with me. But that doesn't mean that that's who she's going to be for the rest of her life. And if you keep holding on to that, like, knock it the fuck off, Joanne. I don't know if that's her teacher's name, but fuck her. So, yeah. Tell Joanne to suck it is what I'm saying.
Suck it, Joanne.
Suck it, Joanne. I picture her as like what is that one in the Monsters movie? You know, the lady that works behind the counter with the glasses, and she's like, Mike Wazowski.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I imagine her teacher looks like. It's probably a dude for all I know.
So funny.
But yeah, so is that like when you were thinking about like advocating for your children, were you thinking more family-wise?
I think in general, just like pretty much everything that we've talked about. I mean, the other thing that has been really, really important to me personally for advocating for my kids is just making sure that like they're always safe and as comfortable as they can be, regardless of who is around. Right. You know, and like, it's dumb that I even have to say this. I feel like that should be common sense, and I think about the lady who let her 17-month-old drown, like, in a safe, but like, I feel like it should be common sense that like your kid should be comfortable and feel safe.
Right.
And I think the word safe means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
Safe to be like safe, obviously from like direct harm, but safe also could mean just feeling comfortable enough to be themselves, right? To an extent. Like I'm not gonna I don't want you at the restaurant throwing fucking silverware and plates on the floor and stuff like, oh, this feels safe.
This feels great.
Yeah, like I feel so accepted. Yeah. Fuck you are.
Yeah, not to accept my foot.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, my ex-husband and I split when the girls were really very young, and we've worked very hard. We've spent a lot of time just kind of figuring out how to tolerate each other, you know, in public and just with each other. And my ex-husband has in the very beginning like would not even say my current husband's name. Like it was him, he, you guys, whatever. And this last week we were in the same room together, all of us, for the first time intentionally, and it was extremely smooth. And my daughter Alana was so excited. Yeah. She literally was like, "There's 2 daddies here." Yeah, like she was stoked, and like that was very warming to me. And that just proves that you can, right? Because there was a lot of damage between my ex-husband and I. And I'm not saying that either one of us are perfect and we're like forgiven and we're best friends. I'm not saying that at all. And we have our moments where we're like, fuck that guy. And I'm sure he's like, fuck that bitch, you know? And I know today. He feels like that. Right. Every day he feels like, fuck that bitch. And that's fine. That's fine. We can have our own stuff and we need to deal with it separately. But when it comes to our children,
don't let it bleed.
Right, don't let it bleed. Don't make your kids feel your shit. It makes me so angry. Yeah. Like so fucking angry. And like, again, caveats to every situation, but I feel like, you know, unless you were in imminent danger and you left your ex because they were fucking beating you or whatever it is, like that's different. And obviously you don't want your kids around that because that's not safe for them. Right. But in situations where there may have been infidelity, there may have been, you know, money issues or whatever there is, handle your shit. Don't be the fucking victim. Heal so that you can be like the best version for your kid long term.
Well, and I'll say this too, is like being it's not what I am, being a step parent. Because I think we had talked about this before, that like one of the number one indicator for a kid to be abused or to possibly die in a relationship is a foster or is a step parent. Why do I keep saying foster? It's a step parent, and which blows my mind because I am a step parent, and I'm like, what the fuck? But it's so interesting because most of the time when people find out that is not biologically mine, they're like shocked. They just like stare at me because we kind of do look alike too. Like we have the same freckles, like the same skin tone. And his mom and I don't look anything alike. It's like he's the perfect mixture of what became me. And so thank you, because he's my baby. And it's funny because we'll be walking somewhere and people will look at him and then they'll look at me, not his dad. And they're like, oh my God, your little boy's so cute. And I'm like, I know, thank you. And he's like, I fucking made that. And I'm like, I didn't, but he's fine. But
Alana looks so much like Mike.
Yeah, and that's what's like, so funny. So much like
how does Lila looks like me, and she's like a dead ringer for my ex-husband. Yeah. Lila is because she's like the darker eyes and stuff. But if you look at Alana and Mike, I'm like, who fucking made you? She doesn't look like my ex-husband at all.
No, at all. No. And I think that's like something I always tell people. It's like, and I never did understand it. And Angelo would tell me, he's like, it's because you guys get along so well. He's super close to you. He trusts you. Like he's, you know, right up in your shit. Like hanging out with you. And because that is not the typical step parent relationship, and as somebody who has had I had multiple stepmoms and a stepdad, and none of them were, I had one stepmom who was really great. She was also a Coke addict at that time.
She's the one that was a Coke addict.
Yeah, she was so much fun because she liked to bake cookies at 3 a.m. because she was high as balls. She was the only one that wasn't horrible. And then I had a stepdad who was fine until my parents got divorced, and that's its own fucking bag of shit that I just ended up carrying. And I can totally see. And so that's why when I became a step parent, I was like, I will absolutely never make Osiris feel like he's anything other than mine. Right. You know, but I always tell people, and when you are dating someone and you have a tiny human, you have to factor in how much that person will affect your child. And if they are not bringing a shit ton of great to the table, do not bring that into your child's life, because it is not easy. Being a step parent is fucking hard because you have the littlest say. you're always kind of just like Switzerland in the middle of the two parents, and you can't really like say yes or no. You're just kind of like put in your opinion, and maybe one of them will fucking take it. Like it's a shitty position to be in.
Yeah, it's super difficult.
It is. And so if you can't get the right person to do that, you're setting your kids up for a fucking shit show of a disaster.
Yeah.
So I always am like I always try to tell people, like, if you're gonna marry that, you better be real fucking ready for that.
Yep.
You know, because it's rare. It's like Diego and his girlfriend. The way she is with his kids, fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they adore her. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, that's what you're looking for, is somebody that your kids are like, fuck yeah, this person's ride or die, even though they didn't make me.
Right.
They would never disown you, never say that you're not theirs, you know? So that would be another little advocate for your kids, is that
if you're gonna
don't date somebody stupid.
Exactly. And like, give it time too, because kids adapt, or they'll, because kids innately, and I think you're the one that told me this, but I also learned it in my researching, my researchicals. Kids innately, they want to please their parents, whatever, like they never want their parents to be, like to look down with them or upset, or look down on them or be upset or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's
because kids are super egocentrical.
Yes.
So everything is them.
Yep.
If you're mad, it's because of me. If you're happy, it's because of me. It's just who they are innately.
Yeah. So they will automatically aim to please their parents.
Right.
So even if they don't like the person,
right,
they initially are going to pretend like they do, or feel like, oh, it's okay, you know, it's fine, mom or dad or whatever.
Yeah.
So you got to give it time and see how it really fucking is.
Yeah.
Let them spend a day with them at, you know, after a certain amount of time. Let them see, are your kids changing? Are they coming, you know, are they reverting in? Are they open? Are they happy?
Are they crying often?
Exactly.
Yeah, things like that. Are they dressing differently? Those are like little indicators. If they are changing externally or reverting internally, those are things, there's something wrong. Something is off.
Yeah.
And you need to pay attention to it. Yeah.
It's hard too, especially like in the teenage phase, because kids do that anyway.
Yeah, they're so moody anyways. And everything's like,
yeah,
oh my God.
Exactly. Everything's super fucking dramatic.
Yeah. The world is going to end all the time.
Well, and it really does feel like that as a teenager.
Because your frontal lobe and your prefront aren't developed.
Right. Well, and your limbic system is like, rah! Yeah. And then your prefrontal lobe is like, we'll catch up. We're slow as fuck.
Yeah, and it's like, so everything feels, and that's why you have to remember is that like everything is level 100. And it's not because they are being dramatic. It's just that's literally where their brain is at.
That's how they feel.
Yeah.
It really actually feels like that. So
yeah.
So that's hard to intertwine that. So like I got my stepdaughter at 14, and I was like, oh my God, fuck, I wasn't ready. I mean, because my
she's a fucking unicorn. Though.
She's definitely not preparing me at all for what my girls.
No, fuck no, you're so fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I love your girls, but those that Brooke and that
they're not the same at all. It's funny, they do all look like sisters though.
They do, which is super cool. And she's taken to them in a very loving way as well, which is super cool.
I know that was like the smoothest transition of my life. Like it couldn't have gone any smoother.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different story about advocating for your children. There was one conversation that Mike and I had where he was like, yeah, kind of like a couple of months after we moved in, so super fresh and new, and he said something about he was worried because Brooke had been like quieter and a little more sad, and he like kind of picked up on that, and I was like, you need to fucking investigate, because if it has anything to do with us, we're moving the fuck out.
Yeah.
And it ended up like her dog died at her mom's house or something, and I was like, but I literally was like, I said that without even thinking, because where the fuck am I gonna know?
Right.
I don't have a plan B.
Right.
But I immediately was like, that little girl means more than fucking we do right now.
Yeah. That's your baby.
Yeah, but I mean, and I'd known her for fucking like 4 months at that point, you know, or we've known each other for a while, but living together had been like 3 months, and I was like, we need to get out. Then I was like, I don't know where the fuck.
Yeah, we need to go. I don't know where.
And I'm like, fucking, I'm gonna move into my mother's one bedroom, the one bedroom she has available, all of us.
It's gonna be so much fun.
It's gonna be fine.
I don't care. A van would be easier.
Yeah, it will, probably. Yeah, but you know, 2 little girls in cribs, like, but even still, I was like, at that moment, even without thinking about it, like advocating for the little girl, you know. But again, that went very well. But I didn't know really what to expect. I'd never been a teenage mom.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would assume me, and then that's terrible.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I was a very easy teenager.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I
don't actually know.
I grew up with my parents. So like we kind of all grew up together.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an attitude.
I think I was like 30 years old at 14, you know?
Yeah. Same.
So I may have been. I think I'm just assuming I was a terrible one, because that's what I've heard, but I don't actually know that to be true.
Yeah, I wasn't horrible.
I didn't get any trouble. Like, I never.
I did, but not terrible. I mean, I wasn't having sex. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't drinking. I didn't fail out of high school. Like, my dad was in prison. So it was difficult with my mom because, we were butting heads quite frequently.
Yeah.
But I think overall I wasn't like.
Well, mothers and daughters at teenage years, that's rough times for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I always remind people too is that, you have to remember is that biologically, when kids get to be a teenager, back in the good old cave days, your brain and your body formulated chemicals to let you know that you needed to go to other tribes so that you wouldn't inbreed.
Yeah.
So when people get all frustrated with like their kids being teenagers, they don't want to hang out, they don't want to be around me, and it's like, yeah, because they don't want to make babies with you. And I know that sounds really gross, but that is what it was. And so they would go out, and then that settles down, and then they come back and they hang out with their family like they're supposed to. But the whole reason for that is to self-preserve and to not make inbred babies. So chill out when your kids don't want to hang out with you as teenagers. It's a thing in them they don't even know they have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was kind of a homebody though. And Brooke is the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know how my little chickens are going to be. I don't know if they're going to want to hang out with me or their dad, or it's different,
Yeah.
But like the way that Adolfo, my ex-husband, and I am like real proud about the way that we handle things. Versus what I've seen other parents do, and the way that they put their kids kind of like in the middle and they communicate through their kids. I'm like, the fuck will ever do that? And he is also on the same like wavelength there. Like we're on the same page 100%. Like it's always about the girls first.
Yeah.
And we have both done things that make us like wildly uncomfortable so that our kids are more comfortable short term, you know?
Yeah.
But so that they can see like. And when they get older, they can understand sacrifices and things like that. Right. But for right now, just let them be kids.
Yeah, just let them play.
And let them just be happy. And like, I'm not a huge fan of all of the situations that my kids are in right now and the way that they got there. And I'm sure my ex-husband could say the same, and my current husband can say whatever. But I'm always very like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting that you have so many people in your life that love you and care about you and want to keep you safe. Yeah. Even though I may not be a fan of all of the situations or all of the people and scenarios. But it's really important that they that they almost get like the acceptance. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Which it's been like that with us. Like I'm always glad that my family loves so much, and he has like an abundance now of more family than humanly possible. He's got 2 moms, a dad. He's got 9,000 grandparents. He's got a great grandma. Like he has so much family, and it makes me sad because he has a cousin that's real close in age who has much less of that, and I'm just like, oh, that fucking sucks, like it's just, it's hard, and you just want the best for him. But I think that's part of it too. It's just like, hopefully you love all the extra things you got and all the extra humans, because again, like I said, sometimes family by gift is even better than family by blood, so I would definitely say that that's not a negative thing at all, but I would definitely say like being mindful of like who you're bringing into the life of your child is probably one of the biggest things. And I see that a lot with people where, you hear these horrible stories of like kids being abused and being hurt, and like the mom was there while the dad, the boyfriend did it, or vice versa. And you're just like, oh, that's real fucked, because I almost think as the biological parent, like you're worse for that, because that's your baby, and you wanted some human in your life rather than some quality human.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing that pisses me the fuck off.
Yeah, like choosing the opposite, like choosing your boyfriend or spouse or whatever. And if it's a toxic like a situation and you just stay in it and it's toxic and you've been like, you are talking about it, or that you're unhappy and your kid is just watching you constantly be unhappy. Right. Like, fuck, man, that is
like, how do you think anything's going to change?
Damaging. Right. Yeah, and then your kid's going to turn around and do the exact same thing. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, they don't love you, or you need to get out of that situation. And they're like, but I learned from you.
Right, but you didn't, so why should I?
Right.
Yeah.
You're teaching them not to value themselves.
Yeah, which is how intergenerational trauma keeps going.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, just like keeps carrying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think that's probably something too that I tell people a lot too, is it's like, you think you're real healed until you have kids. And then you're like, oh, fuck, there's all this other stuff I never even thought to work on, or that bugs me, and it's like, why does that bother me? And it's interesting, because I always like, when Osiris does something that causes me to feel like tense or irritated, I have to like take a second, and I'm like, is it him or is it something in me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like when he gets sassy, I like instantly get like real like irritated, and I'm like, why does that bother me? I'm like the sassiest person on the fucking planet, you know? But I realize it's because as a human being in my life, and as a child especially, being sassy was not appreciated, and my opinion was not well heard. To this day, there are still people in my family who do not enjoy my fucking opinions and my attitude and my sass. And so when he does it, it's like my inner little me is like nervous, like, oh, this is gonna hurt, you're gonna get in trouble, you're gonna get made fun of, you're gonna get shamed. And then I like tense up and I almost want to react and be like, hey, don't do that. And then I have to like think for a second, and I'm like, that's your shit, that's not his. Like, don't fucking do that to him.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily get like that, but I do get like, I get triggered when my kids don't eat. Like, like, and maybe they're like not even hungry, but so for example, my husband could go like all day without eating and he would be fine. And then he'd be like, oh damn, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, what'd you eat today? And he's like, a strawberry. And I'm like, the fuck?
It's all 3 days
like,
ago.
how did you, yeah. I'm like, how the fuck did you forget to eat today? You know, and it's a very ADHD thing. They just like, they forget, you know, or they're very hyper focused or whatever. So it's not necessarily at the forefront. Now, am I saying that he fucking starves us? No, he's a chef. Now, come on now.
Right.
But I'm constantly worried about my kids being hungry. And I'm a little more like loosey-goosey about it now that they're older and can tell me when they're hungry, or can be like, Mom, like fucking feed me.
Right.
I'm like, we just ate like 30 seconds ago. And now I'm like, are we hungry because we're bored or because we're hungry? You know?
Are we thirsty?
Yeah. Like, are we just, what are we? We're just toddlers? Okay.
Yeah.
But that is a lot because I was always worried that I wouldn't have food. And I didn't always have dinner.
Yeah.
Or like I didn't always have food, you know, like in the house. Or like we would have Snickers bars for dinner or whatever, you know. And like I even remember we went to McDonald's and they used to do like 10 for 10. So it was like 10 hamburgers for $10, or it was like 10 cheeseburgers for like $12.
Yeah.
And I would always want cheese, and my dad would be like, we don't have money for cheese. Like we only have $10 kind of thing. Yeah. And so like if my kids are like, oh, I don't want this, I want something else, I immediately am always like, okay, whatever you want, just as long as you eat. And my husband is like, no, eat your fucking food. This is what you said you wanted. I know you eat it. And it like takes everything in my body to be like, she's not gonna fucking starve tonight. She's a little chunky monkey. She's not gonna starve tonight.
That's so
been
funny.
eating all day, but I like freak. I'm like,
that's so funny.
I get real quiet, and sometimes if I just can't, I'm like, please fucking give her the fucking grilled cheese.
Right.
Like I know she wants the fucking grilled cheese. Will you please just give it to her?
Yeah.
Because I freak out if they don't eat.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that has to. It's like one time I took O to see the movie Wish. And there was this, it still like warms my little dead heart. There was this scene with chickens, and we have chickens, and you have your chickens, but we have like our chickens. And there was a scene where the chickens start singing. Oh my God, he thought that was the greatest thing. And O has like this laugh that could literally like stop the world for me. Like his laugh is one of my favorite things. Like I can hear it across the room, and I'm like, oh, that's my baby. And so he gets his little O giggle, and then he stands up and proceeds to start dancing and like singing something, because he had never seen this movie before. So he's just singing with the chickens. And for a split second, I was like, oh my God, sit down, be quiet. You know, I was like, oh my God, like panicked almost, right? That like, oh my God. And I like remember like having the moment and kind of looking around, and then like other kids did it. They got up and they were moving around and singing, and like no one was upset. No, and I was like, that was your shit, you know? Like, get your chicken on, huh? And I'm like, yay! And like, luckily he didn't notice. And I had like a full fucking like 30-second freak out of like nothing. But again, it's like one of those things, right? Where you recognize like, oh, fuck me, that was me. And it's like, and there's been times where I don't recognize it fast enough. And then those are where I have to make amends and be like, oh, I fucked that up. I'm so sorry. I love you so much, you know? But it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good. And then something will happen. I'm like, that hasn't been healed like I thought it was.
Very ungood.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I have to work on that. Fuck. But I think that's why, you know, working on like your little you stuff, man, that's probably some of the hardest work you'll do, but it's probably some of the most important, especially if you have kids. Because kids will get right in there and yank that shit right out.
Yes, yes, they do.
Yeah, that's how they get you. So, okay, so when we're thinking about ways, I don't know, it's hard. This is such a hard question because it makes me so angry, because I feel like I ask it all the time. It's like, how do we make things better? How do we make because we talk all the time, like, we want to heal New Mexico, we want to heal New Mexico. And then there's days where I'm like,
it's never gonna fucking
or do we just burn it to the fucking ground, you know,
Yeah,
and just give it
start
to
fucking
Mexico
over.
and be like, this can be yours. Just move the border up. Or maybe, you know, Trump will forget where the line is and just move it, and then we're just part of that. I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know that there's an answer for this, because I don't ever, I guess part of it is too, is that I don't know that it's a one-pronged approach.
No, nothing. Well, it's just like what I call my cellular revival protocol is it's not ever just one thing.
Yeah.
Like you have to heal it from the inside out, and it starts with the kids.
Yeah.
But you can't get to the kids without going through the parents.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So like you got to do it at the same time. It's
Yeah.
like you got to really raise like a whole new generation. Like your kids have to grow up
Right.
at the same time as the parents are healing. But
Yeah.
like everybody has to fucking be on board.
Right. Well, and two, we have
Hard.
to remember too, is that in New Mexico especially, and other places as well, a lot of who's raising our kids is not their parents.
Yeah.
It's their grandparents, right? Which is why we do, through the Lotus, we do the Dragonfly program, because I very much am not a stripper named China, thank you to my grandparents, right? And I
Fucking
think-
same.
Yeah, there are,
Same.
yeah, every day I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm not hanging from a pole with glitter all over me. Well, also because I'm old as fuck, but thank you, Granny and Papa, because even black light with this would be a lot for people. So I'll be like, hey, oh, yeah, oh, that's a lot. Well, I guess now I have a scar, and some people like scars, so there's the colon scar. I get extra for
I
that.
have a C-section scar.
Oh my God, we could make so much money. Yeah, be like, you can touch it, 50 cents, get off.
50 cents. Don't hit.
Yeah, don't hit pink. But I think that's the other thing too, is that we have to remember is that not all of our kiddos are being raised by their parents. And if grandparents are raising grandbabies and the parents are not healthy, and you are still allowing them into that child's life, you are enabling a situation that will never get better and will not heal. Like, it's a shitty place to be.
Yep.
But you have to be able to say, until you are 100% have your shit together, you cannot be in this kid's life, because that's not healthy. You have to have your shit together to be around your kids.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's so many components and so many pieces. I think if people could just start being realistic
Yeah.
about, like, yeah, we've got everybody. There's no one in this fucking world walking the planet who doesn't have something that needs to be healed, and taking time to look at that and heal it, not just for you, but for everything that comes after you.
Yeah.
You know? So that for me, it's like we said, it's a multi-pronged approach, and it takes an entire tribe of people doing it. And that means that the tribe has to fucking agree. And that seems to be real hard these days, in this state especially.
Yeah.
Which is making me nuts to move.
I mean, I don't really know that it's better anywhere else.
I know, I don't know either, because it's not like I've ever lived anywhere but New Mexico. I mean, I've traveled places, but I've never lived anywhere else. And I'm sure, you know, everywhere's got its shit and it's got its good. And we have our good too. We just need to get our fucking shit together. And we have the ability to do it. And we do have the resources. We just don't use them.
And money.
Yeah. And we're just fucking fighting over it, which is so dumb. So dumb.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
No, I agree.
So work on your shit is the answer, I guess.
Yep. Hashtag work on your shit.
Hashtag work on your shit. Can we get that in a shirt, please? Add that to the merch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything that you wanted to add before we leave without a closing, because we still don't have it? Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
So in closing, don't fuck it up.
Don't fuck it up. Hashtag heal your shit.
Yeah. I think it's good.
All right.
It's good.
Good. All right, guys. Thanks for being here with us.